Alright, Chapter 28, Construction of New Railway Lines and the Track Linking. Alright, the introduction. Construction of new railway lines is normally required for one of the more following reasons: strategical, political considerations, development, backward areas, connection, new trade centers, shorting existing railway lines. Existing single railway lines are doubled within a few cases to cope with the burden of the additional traffic. Recently, a large number of the projects have been undertaken with converting the existing meter gauge and the broad gauge line in order to ensure the uniform gauge of the smooth low flow traffic. 28.1. Construction of new lines. The main tasks involved with the construction of new lines are as follows: land acquisition, earth bridges, air construction station, buildings, staff quarters, other allied facilities, including platforms and sheds, laying out plates, including ballasts of the track, opening the section of the traffic. Land acquisition. Work of the land acquisition should start in the well advance of all the legal financial formalities complete within time. The position of the land is taken with the start of the construction work. Landing acquisition is done to help the state with the government procedure laid down with the land acquisition. Normally, Section 4.6 of the Land Acquisition Act apply with the acquisition of land whenever the land is acquired, and generally done after the giving the certain notice and paying the requisition compensation. In the case of an emergency land can be acquired urgently at application special section 917 land acquisition line. The land being required for the sufficient formation bearing to borrow the payment should also have the adequate provisions. Future expansion, even when a single line is constructed, should be certain that the land may be available to suitable further conversion with a double line normal strip of the 15 to 25 meters land acquired with construction railway line extra width of the land acquired with the for station yards. In case of a small station with normally adapted of 150 to 100,000 meters, and the minimum requirements selected land should be such that it can be catered with the following requirements: width of the formation land should be adequate to accommodate the width of the formation side slope, depends on the nature of the soil, normally taken in 2 to 1 horizontal vertical. Width of the berm is usually kept at 3 feet, 3 meters. Burrow pit with land with not very costly adequate land should be used to made with the available burrow pit. The burrow pit's made variable, provide one side of the track with low banks, both sides of the track medium high banks. Land expensive with the burrow pits are needed to provide with the instead of the earth can be borrowed with the adjoining areas. The extra land is however required at the station yard level to leveling crossing bridge approaches. 28.1.2 Earthwork and formation. Depending on the railway general contour of the formation may be laid with embankment. With the cutting the formation laid in embankment normally preferred before it's afford good damage drainage. The height of the embankment also depends on the high flood level of the area. The responsible freeboard that should be given before the high level flood level. Standard width of the formation, broad gauge, meter gauge are shown in table 28.1. Broad gauge embankment 6.10 meters, 10.8 double line. Cutting 5.4 meters, 10.21 double line. Meter gauge embankment 4.8 meters, double line 8.84 meters. Cutting meter gauge 4.27 meters, single line 8.23 double line. Some points of the kit to be kept in mind regarding the earthwork given below. The earthwork normally is 30 centimeters layer, so the soil was well pacted. Mechanical compaction normally done after each of the layer work that has helped the sheep of the roller to obtain 90% maximum dry density at the optimum measure moisture content. A shrinkage allowance of 5% made with the consolidation vinyl cross section of the case mechanical compaction. The shrinkage allowance increased to 10% of the non-mechanical compaction involved. The blanket of the thickness about 30 centimeters provided with the top of the embankment where the soil is not good quality. In areas where both cutting of the embankments of soil from the cutting should be used with the embankments up to the economical lead with the economical lift and limit of the moving of the earth in longitudinal direction to determine the mass haul curve. For early excavation earthwork, the section normally divided into conventional zones. Each zone was acquired earthwork consisting of $1.5 to $3 million. Approximately 10 are separately invited with each of the zone through the work can progress simultaneously all zones. 28.13 Bridges. The bridges should be designed to bear the load of the heaviest locomotive likely to pass this section. Depending upon the topographic location, type of the seam croft, the hump of the pipe of the culverts, the RCC slap bridge of the plate gird of the PRC bridge girders, seal bridge and design bridges beginning important structures normally constructed to accommodate the double line and even in the sections where there's single line being set up with the future expansion can be planned. Separate tenders are invited for construction of important bridges so that the bridge design construction can be also included into the tender document. The minor bridges culverts normally include the earthwork zones mentioned earlier. 28.14 Servicing buildings and staff quarters. Servicing buildings include the buildings such as station master, office, telegraphic office, basically required provided assistance running of the trains apart with the staff quarters and other passenger amenities such as platforms, foot over bridges, waiting halls, retiring rooms are also provided with the station. Many other ancillary facilities such as water drainage, telephone lines, electricity are made available to every station. All these constructions are taken simultaneously. Civil engineers, electrical engineers, signal engineers, so that they all work progress towards it together. 2815, plating and laying and track linking. One of the formations are ready. The plate lining of the track linking should be done, which will basically consist of the laying of the rails, sleepers, and fastening. The following methods can be adopted: plate lining. The train line method. The method of the temporary line was known as the train line laid into the side of the road track, transporting track material on the site. The methods can be useful flat terrains while laying the tram line in the natural ground may be comparatively easier. The methods, however, seldom used in actual practice. Modification above the method is called the side method. Is also practice of the track and bridge material such as the steel girders, RCC slabs carried to the side of the tracks on the strip of the roads run parallel with the track. These materials are then unloaded near the work site. The method is used only in the case where the terrain is comparatively flat. Alright, the American method. The method of the rails and sleeper. The first assemble the base depot with the assembly track panels, then conveyed over the site along with the necessary cranes, etc. The track panels are unloaded with the site of the worker manually without the help of cranes and then laid in the final position. The procedure used to mainly develop the country, particularly with a concrete sleeper delayed with a quite heavy and not very easily handled manually. Alright, the telescopic method. The method while the Indian Railways and method of the railway, sleep at the other fitting of the take of the base of the depot, unload the trail material take up the railhead with the tracks linked with the pack. The railheads are advanced to the point where the track has been laid. Track materials are taken up the extended railway head with the help of dip lorry or track linked and then packaged again. The rail packed again. These railheads goes in advance until the entire track has been linked. The main operation involved with the method as follows. Unloading the materials. Track materials are taken to the base depot and unloaded with the help of the material gains. The first base of the depot lies with the junction existing line of the new line constructed. All track material is taken from the base depot of the railhead with the help of the dip lorry or special type trolley. Railhead goes on advance till the track is sufficiently linked. After the subsidiary depot established a distance about 5 kilometers, the track material carried in this depot will help the material train. Alternatively, track material is transferred from the base depot with help of the dip lorry up to the distance of 2 kilometers. The means of the material train beyond the distance of the base depot arrangements advanced process, such as adzing and boring of the sleepers, as well as the forematching of the material to ensure the speedy linking of the track at the site. Linking with the track. The track material is unloaded. The track is linked with the help of the linking gangs. The following procedure normally adopted the purpose: stringing of the first stretch along with the center line of alignment. The sleepers are all laid within the center of the strings. Sleepers are laid roughly in the desired spacing, keeping the total number of the spacers rail intact. The 3 and 2, the rails are carried on rail tongues laid on the cess of the bank and almost at the final position, carrying the rails in a strenuous job. About 12 and 15 gangmen are required to carry each rail. Each rail weighs up to 0.6 tons or so. Special type of the rail carrier known as the Anderson rail car shown in 28.1 can also be used for carrying the rails in lesser train. Alright, this shows the rail and the Anderson rail carrying the rail. Next, the sleepers distributed in length of the formation of the rails and marking indicating the final position of the sleepers shown in figure 28.1. Small fittings, fish plates, bolts are kept in the air with the joints, and the fittings are required that each of the sleepers are kept at the end of the sleeper. The rails are placed in the sleeper fixed with the help of the fittings which close depending on the type of the sleepers. For example, the rail screws are used in fixing rail wooden sleepers. In the case of the steel sleeper, the rails are fixed with the help of the key. The bearing plates are provided whenever required as per track standards. 6. The rails are joined with each other, ensuring that there is sufficient gap between them. Normally, the initial length of the track is done with the 3 rail panels. Adequate expansion gaps should be provided in the case of the single rail, as well as 3 rail panels. The recommendation expansion gaps are provided with the help of the streamlined liners, shims of appropriate thickness to 1 millimeter to 4 millimeters, which are thick between the 2 rail ends. Packing of the track. The track is thoroughly packed with the help of the beaters and packing gangs. Following aspects should be examined during the process. The track should have proper gradient of the track on the curve. It should have the proper curvature. The cross level should be even. The track is provided with its recommendation. Super elevation should be achieved with a raising outer rail. The track should be thoroughly packed and should be full of hollow spaces. Ballasting over the track. The railway line is normally covered by the ballast after the embankment has been settled and lasting during the last 2 monsoons. Ballasting is generally done with the help of the ballast stream, which is special hoppers that are usually automatically unloading the ballast onto the track. Alternatively, the ballast is taken to the cess and then placed track manually. Either manual method you can ensure the ballast is thoroughly packed and inserted properly underneath the track. Alright, 28.2, the requirements of the track material, broad gauge track. Rail, the standard length of the track rails is 13 meters, the broad gauge 12 meters, meter gauge. The number of the rails per kilometer, the broad gauge is 1,000 over 13 equals 2, or 77 times 2 is 154. Weight of the 52 gauge rail per kilometer, 52 times 154 is 8,008 kilograms. Number of sleepers, the number of sleepers that depends on the sleeper's density. Assume the sleeper density is M7, where M is the length of the rails in meters. Number of the sleepers in rail, 13 plus 7, 20. Sleepers per kilometer, 77 times 20, 1,540. Fasting, number of fish plates per kilometer, 2 times the number of the rails per kilometer, 2 times 154, 308. Number of the fish bowls, 4 times the number of the rails per kilometer, 4 times 154, 616. Number of the bearing plates, number of the bearing plates, number of sleepers times 2, 1,540 times 2 is 3,080. Number of dog plates, number of sleepers 4 times 1,540 times 4 is 6,160. Requirements of track materials meter gauge can also be calculated in the same manner. Alright, doubling the railway line. Doubling the railway line is returned to the constructed additional line with the normal when the single line is no longer capable of carrying all the trains that ply on the section. Main step involved with the doubling of the railway line described here. Engineering cum traffic survey. The traffic survey conducted with examining the traffic prospect section to roughly identify the quantum cork or the cost effect of the railboard final sanctions of the work authorized the railway to execute the same specification work. During the execution of the work, the necessary clear to understand and follow the standards of construction specifications have been laid down. The track standards should be also decide the surveying of the same can be followed with the process of the work progress. The ruling gradient of the maximum curve normally as the same as existing line. Alright, your land acquisition. Necessary extra land required for the double line station yard of the bridges in case it not already have been done. Earthwork of the double line is done with widening the existing formation. Double line landing of the earthwork is to be done divided in different zones with a separating contract over each of the zone. Earthwork is properly consolidated, normally made into the enduring 2 range. The sole of the poor quality blanket of the adequate range thickness is provided just below the final level of the formation. The sole can be consolidated by using a sheep foot roller or vibrator roller to achieve the desired compaction. When this is done, the traffic can be allowed to ply on the track immediately after the work has been completed. The existing bridges are extended due to the double line extension done after drawing up of the plan to cover the minimum dislocation and disruption of the track. Separate zone controllers zonal contracts are awarded with major bridges, which are minor bridges include zero behind the earthwork. Work is normally planned to be completed in the work season lasting October to June. Plate lining. Rail sleepers of vastings are collected with the train depot specifically established project. Normally such depots are suited with every railway situation. They work on the track lining as usual, done in the telescopic method. Opening for good traffic and balancing. As soon as the construction work is completed, line is open the good for the traffic planning. The restricted speed ballasters train lines are run on the section unloaded with the ballast on the track. When this is packed manually with the help of the beaters, open line passenger track on the line with the properly packed with the same open passenger traffic to obtain the sanction of the Commissioner of Railway Tracks and Railway Safety. The speed restriction section slowly relaxed to train can ply with the maximum permissible speed once again. Alright, 28.4, gauge conversion. A number of the projects have recently been taken up the Indian Railways, converting the railway lines to meter gauge to broad gauge conversion. Gauge conversion basically aims to provide the uniform gauge for the smooth and fast flow of the traffic, which may be necessity either due to strength or reason for the account of the operation consideration. Main advantage of the gauge conversion as well. The details is discussed in Chapter 2. 28.4.1 execution of the gauge conversion projects. The detail of the work, the field work normally involved with the gauge conversion projects presented in 28.2. 28.2 conversion gauge conversion meter gauge. Meter gauge track, newly interplaced broad gauge spacer sleepers, existing wooden meter gauge sleepers. Meter gauge sleepers, broad gauge sleepers, 2.075 meters, 1.8 meters, 1 meter gauge. Through ballast, 4.8 millimeters, 2 to 1 embankment. Alright, planning works. Gauge conversion projects require detailed planning as they involve expansion which needs to be carried out with the time schedule of the multifarious activities such as assigning contracts, posting and management, planning manpower, including supervisors, artisans, supply with the track materials coordinated between the engineering service, the telegraph, electrical operation, various other departments. Most engineering work is done placing the traffic blocks and regular basis of the residual work is finally completed. Extending traffic blocks several consecutive days for the route during the time of the gauge conversion work being executed on war footing. Manual requirement. The manual requirement of various tasks involved with the gauge conversion project that assumed up to about 80 laborers per kilometer to ensure the gauge conversion completed within 30 days of all aspects. The permanent way inspector and the assistant engineer should be assigned to one or two more block sections respectively for the continuous monitoring with the project's progression work to ensure the requisite quality of the control. Contractors should engage at least 2 competent supervisors per block section. In addition, will train permanent way mates appointed to each for the special gang. Alright, speed potential. 2 rounds of packing light off the track tampers to show the follets and Chinese tampers are required to make the track for speeds of 50 kilometers an hour. This is for supplemented 2 more rounds packing. Using heavy on-track tire tamping machine, making the track fit to the speed of 100 kilometers an hour. Economy measures. Gauge conversion projects for the capital investment adequate financial resources to have to mobilize to meet the ambiguous targets. Railway Ministries has therefore taken a decision all schemes of the gauge for the conversion to be carried out in the most economical way, but cutting down the cost of the conversion in various ways. The railways plan to carry out the gauge conversion works with commercial and economical cost of 6 to 7 millions per kilometer against normal cost of 9 to 10 million per kilometer, therefore saving 30 to 40% on the initial cost. Guidelines are followed by the regarding as following. The maximum permissible speed of the converter with the broad gauge section needs not to be more than the previous specified meter gauge section. Facilities required in the section should not be more than what is already has provided, except for the loop length of about 686 meters. Length of the platform station currently serves as stop of the mail express trains should be just enough to accommodate 16 coaches, for the existing platforms needed to extend. The extended portion should be constructed rails leveled up. A suburban section length of the platform should be enough to 12 coaches. Important stations platform lengths to be sufficient, no more than 22 coaches, with added provisions for the future expansion of 26 coaches. Alright, 2842, civil engineering works of the gauge conversion projects. Engineering column traffic survey. The survey is done with examining the technical feasibility, proposal, economical aspect of the sum. And land acquisition. Land requirement, the converting the track for the meter gauge to broad gauge, except for the necessary extra land as required per existing procedure laid down in the Land Acquisition Act. Earthwork is done on either side of existing formation single line track that increase the width of 16 feet to 20 feet, gave the embankments of 14 feet, in this case of the cuttings. Bridge culverts. The existing bridge and culverts extend with the suit with the broad gauge to conform with the standard adopted broad gauge section. The extension of the bridge is properly made plan to measure the minimum dislocation of the traffic. Track linking involved the following operation: unloading track material. The track material such as rail sleep, the fastening taken with the base depot of the worksite, with unloaded at the final location. Preliminary works that are such as boring, adhering sleep, the proper matching with the rails, drilling holes in the rails that had planned in advance, interlacing sleepers. Wooden sleepers are best suited for the gauge conversion project available. They are interlaced with the existing sleeper of the track also, and are two spiked together. Arrangement of the man and material. The deployment of the manpower, including the supervising staff, may be planned. The detailed conversion of the track meter gauge to broad gauge achieved with the minimum interruption traffic. Normally 50 to 100 men per kilometer working required with the track during the traffic block. Additional work is skilled of the artisans such as blacksmiths also require the track conversion. All the track material, including fittings, are properly organized, arranged at the site. Tools, equipment such as augers, drills, and Jim Crows, crowbars, rail tongs, sleeper tongs, spanners are also arranged in adequate quantities. Traffic blocks. Traffic suspended within the railway for a period of 15 to 30 days, depending on the length of the track dealt with, so that the work of the gauge conversion can be carried out out of one stretch. During the traffic block, the traffic is diverted. Alternate routes shipped into the road vehicles. Alright, link of the new way traffic. During the traffic block, the existing railways are removed. The new rails are in what the final position backtrack. The new sleepers are placed in the proper position. Railways are spiked. The sleeper, the broad gauge requirement, the track is properly leveled with the line, and the traffic is allowed new line restricted speed after obtaining sanction of the Commissioner of the Railway Safety, ballast and packing, adequate quantity of the ballast is then put in the track. The track is properly packed. The speed restriction gradually relaxed. The stability is improved. Summary. Both passenger and good traffic increase at a very fast rate of the Indian Rails. Therefore, the construction of new lines, double lining, existing single line tracking must be important. The latter is brought through the extensive gauge conversion projects that involve the land acquisition, earthwork, construction, bridges, station buildings, many other activities. The projects should be planned and executed following the standard norms to ensure the train runs safely. Chapter 29, Suburban Railways in Metro Cities.